So first of all, could you just tell me what DBSA hopes to get out of attending and sponsoring the APPP conference?
Thank you. DBSA is a South African-owned development finance institution. Its current focus is to promote the rapid rollout and development of infrastructure in the region, in the SADC region, and in South Africa predominantly. So this is a perfect platform for the bank to engage stakeholders and hopefully from that process of engagement, kickstart and get the private investors into projects, infrastructure projects in the region.
What do you think are the top 3 qualities of a successful PPP?
Thank you. A public-private partnership is really for the delivery of infrastructure for public use by the general populace. It therefore must deliver affordability for whatever its purpose is. It must be affordable for the people, number one. All the parties in there, it's important that they perform and they perform to their utter best. The government must pay and the private sector must deliver the good and service. So that's the second key criteria for a successful PPP. The third one is that there must be a sense of exchange of value for money. Whatever parties and whatever roles they're playing in this framework of agreements, there must be a definite feel for value for money exchanged for, in the framework of agreements for PPPs.
How do PPPs fit in with DBSA's strategy?
The PPP strategy is really a strategy which enables the DBSA to deliver on its mandate of infrastructure. You will recall our minister highlighted the funding gap that is there in the country. The numbers are clear, around 4 trillion rather, is what's required to deliver infrastructure. PPPs are one way of doing that.
In what way do you think that PPPs are specifically well suited to Africa?
Thank you for that question. They are very well suited for Africa, and the reason is really predominantly twofold. PPPs provide a framework for which things are done, and Africa needs rigid frameworks to give investors a sense of comfort that these things will be done as described or as agreed to. So PPPs provide that framework. You can't do a PPP without a true legal framework that supports the agreements around the PPP. That's one key area. Africa also needs PPPs because this is the perfect opportunity for private sectors to participate together with public sector in delivering projects. And this is exactly what Africa needs, the pulling in, like everybody else, the pulling in of private capital into the region through, and I say PPPs, rather than asking private sector to deliver on its own.
And can you see any value in developing a regional framework?
I think so. Firstly, if you have a regional framework, then you have the benefit of scale. You do things to a larger scale, you impact a larger populace compared to PPPs being run in individual countries. So the value is definitely in scale. PPPs by nature also entail a depth of transparency because agreements are agreed to upfront and it's clear how things should work. Now that's what we need. It brings transparency in our view, and especially if it's done in a regional context. So in my view, those are the two key benefits, scale, efficiency, and definitely the transparency that comes with that.
Could you give me a brief outline of what you'll be speaking on tomorrow?
Thank you. Thursday, I'll be talking about the funding options to close the gap. What's clear globally is that there is a funding gap. In other words, governments can only do so much compared to what's required from an infrastructure perspective. So what are the options? If government can only take it that far, what are the options? How do you pull private capital into to combine with government funding so that you deliver on these projects? So what I'll be talking about is really the options around how else you can do these things or close the gap. And that will include use of common borrowing authorities, It will include talk around bonds, infrastructure bonds. It will talk around syndications by banks as well as funds. All these are different forms of options to pull capital into the infrastructure space.
How does DBSA hope to close the infrastructure gap, the financing gap?
We are the intermediary in this. We listen to investors. We understand the national development plans. In fact, we are built around national development plans. So sitting dead bang in the middle, we are able to really catalyze and pull in private capital by being a funder. We will interpret the national plans and approach different private sectors. We have this pull-in effect. Our presence in projects generally attracts other funders to be there, and therefore, by the power of many, we're able to fund projects that were previously unfundable from a scale perspective.
What have you found to be common sticking points in implementing PPPs in Africa?
It's global. PPPs are complex. You really need to dig in and understand what's going on. You need to pre-agree on a lot of things. And generally, something has different meanings to different parties. That has been the gap or cause for problems in PPPs, a common understanding of what needs to be done or what is being agreed to. But I think things are getting better. We've seen a few being executed successfully. We can learn from that. So this is why it's very important that the correct legal framework and institutional framework be in place for us to deliver, for the avoidance of conflicts around PPPs.
And what do you have to say about this year's Africa PPP conference?
I think the whole thing that excites us is that we trigger debate around this, but we are not only debating for the sake of debating. We would like to get on with it and would like to get infrastructure deployed in Africa. The development of infrastructure, as you know, is linked to the development of the region. So this is the way to do it. Let's trigger debate with a sense of urgency, and let's get out there and do these things.